From Unity Church of Christianity in Houston, Texas, this is The Awakened Life with Reverend Howard Caesar. Unity is a non-denominational Christian church providing a positive, practical, and progressive approach to Christianity. Let's join the service in progress with the Reverend Howard Caesar.
I want to begin today by sharing the fact that I have a passion for life, and that I'd like to grow and deepen that passion as well, because I know that there's more room for that to happen. I recognize that life is a gift. I continue to become more and more aware of that and live from that, to hold life dear. I want to continue to deepen in my realization that life really is sacred, a sacred gift. And in that process, we deepen our connection with the divine as well. I just read on a person's T-shirt passing through the airport, the words on his T-shirt, live each day as if it were your last. Someday it will be. And the motivation there is not about the focus on the ending, but to believe that there is really a level of living that is offered to us that we may be falling short of, and that there is much more that we're being called to. There are higher states that people are moving into, and those who are open and receptive and willing to enter into the process and the dynamic, this is an exciting time to be alive. And for those who are open, and really it's part of their divine plan, to be a part of being a vessel through which these energies are moving is significant, really. My being resonates with the fact that we are not here by accident, that we are here by a divine plan that is unfolding in my life, and a divine plan that is unfolding for each of you in this life. I believe that we share in this deep, inner desire to have our lives be given meaning, and at least even more meaning. I look to that, ways in which my life can deepen and be enriched and be attuned to the divine and how I am to be used. And I hope that's for all of us. And really, I think we are looking for a deeper and more meaningful and powerful life. Otherwise, why would you be here attending on these Sundays? Why would those of you who are viewing on TV want to be tuning in and listening to these messages and these truths, other than the fact that there is something in you that is being called higher? You know that something else exists. You know that there's another dimension. There are areas within the framework of our own consciousness that are holding us back. We want to peel away those layers and step into that place where we honor the image and likeness of which we were created by the divine. And all that we've covered over with it, we want to remove. And that's a process that we give ourselves to. We know that on some level, there is this sacred meaning to life, and that this exists, and that it's really found always in the realm of spirituality. And when I talk about spirituality, I'm not talking about religion, because the truth is that in our history on the planet, religion has not always been about coming together in oneness. Religion has sometimes divided and polarized. My God's better than your God, or my doctrine and dogma is better than yours, or that dynamic. But the truth is that in oneness, you totally understand and you totally get that we're all brothers and sisters. There are many paths that lead to God, that at the core of these different paths are a universal truth. Certainly we choose Jesus Christ and His message, the clarity and the power of it, but we in no way diminish any of the other paths. And that's a powerful and important dimension. And so we come not from separation, but from oneness, and wanting to have a passion for oneness. I have a passion for oneness. I want oneness to spread. I want people to step into that place. It's a glorious place to be, where we share the same God and where we share this divine nature of love. And love is what brings us together. Inside of oneness, there is love. Inside of oneness, there is peace. Inside of oneness, there is joy and a sense of bliss, a whole new perception about who you are, your relationship to others, your relationship to all dimensions of life. Jesus said many powerful and important things in the course of His ministry, but two things that He highlighted and stressed that were there and evident underlying the foundation of everything that He taught had to do with love and oneness. In love, of course, he said that first law is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. That's in a powerful way, that there's nothing more important than your relationship to that which gave you the breath of life. Okay, and that should be going on and be deepening. There's a dimension of your life that should be occurring in. Steps should be being taken. Okay, and he said that the next was to love your neighbor as yourself, which is to say, really, to learn to love yourself so that you can love your neighbor. And then he got to talking about oneness in many ways, of course, and one saying that I and the Father are one. And that is no small thing, because he always was trying to take us into the same experience that he himself was living from. When he said, follow me, he meant it literally. Follow me into the states of consciousness and the awakened awareness that I am living from. I want you to know God the way I know God. I want God to move through you the way God moves through me. We may not understand completely all of the higher states from which he was able to live from, but we have to take our baby steps a bit at a time. And as we learn those, then we're given new dimensions actually to step into. It's very clear to me, and I hope it is to you, that that's what is the dynamic that goes on for us. He prayed for us, the prayer, wanting for us to have this experience. You can find it in the Gospel of John in chapter 17. You can look it up, and where he prayed the prayer to the Father, the words he says, that they may be one as we are. You and I are the they, that they may be one as we are. Couldn't be more clear. He prayed also that they may be one as you, Father, are in me, and I in you, that they may also be one in us. Okay? A wonderful dynamic. And that the glory which you gave me, I have given them, that they may be one. I in them, and you in me, that they may be made perfect in one. Powerful stuff. So the goal is oneness, oneness with God or the divine. And our ministry is called Unity, as you know, and unity is synonymous with the word oneness. And so we are about unity with God, unity with yourself, unity with humanity, and unity with all nature and all life, because everything is alive. People who have stepped into these higher states get a sense that everything is speaking to them, that everything in nature even. They're not just standing outside of a tree looking at a tree, they become the tree. They feel an energy, a life moving through it. These things exist. Now, we get bogged down so often in the left side of the brain, all the logical, linear dynamic that keeps us away from the experience, which occurs and moves through the right brain. Now, this is all scientific and well known. There's some powerful stories out there. Jill Bolt, I think it is, that had a stroke and talked about the fact of her left brain and right brain and how she recovered and experienced that whole dynamic of one part of the brain shutting down and living totally from the other and experiencing it and returning to talk about it. And she happened to be a brain scientist. She was in that field. It was like God gifted her with that dynamic. It's a great book to read, actually. Get carried away here. And so the goal is oneness with God, as I say. The goal of this church, then, is to leave the lower states, really, of separation consciousness and move into these higher states of unity consciousness, oneness consciousness. And so moving into these higher states is referred to as awakening or becoming awakened. And an important characteristic of awakening is that it establishes a condition where you don't have any more personal suffering in your life. Can you imagine that? You don't have any more personal suffering. We'll talk more about that. In order to get to awakening, though, awareness is required, okay? Expanding our awareness is a requirement if a person wants to go in the direction of awakening or its attainment. And so there is a difference really between being conscious and being aware. And very simply, without taking the time to explain it, elaborate, in awareness, there is no personal suffering. It's almost like you're a witness of things, so you don't identify with everything that's moving through. Being conscious, there is personal suffering, because you're identifying, you're conscious of it, but now you're identifying with it. whatever the label, whatever the pain, whatever the wound, whatever it is that is passing through, that you're conscious of, you feel the pain. And so, you know, I've been to India now a number of times. I've been to the Oneness University. It's very compatible with what we teach here in Unity. Oneness, unity, the ideas, the principles, that we're all one. I love going there because the teachings are so aligned. And some of the things that they taught and emphasized, it was broad in terms of the amount of time, being there over 3 weeks. And, but a slice that I want to share with you is that where they talk about the fact that there are parts of us that are suffering, we have to look at them and we have to address them in a different way as opposed to running from them. And so that there are 3 kinds of suffering, and there's physical suffering, one, which is basically, obviously, has to do with needing food, needing shelter, water, air, those kinds of things. If you don't have them, you're physically going to suffer. And we have aches and pains and things that our body goes through at times, injuries, what have you, disease. And so there are different kinds of physical pain. Then there's also psychological pain. We all probably know what that's about, and that has to do with the needs of the mind, has to do with internal conflicts that we have. Physical needs then also can create suffering in the psychological realm as well. So there are all kinds of needs that need to be met mentally, and we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But then the third area is existential or spiritual suffering. And that has to do really with a person who just in moments and times in their life feel a complete emptiness. They feel a sense of discontent. They can't even describe what it is. They feel separate somehow, and meaninglessness is going on within them. You know, I was in a thrifty car rental shuttle bus in some of my travels, and on the back wall of this shuttle bus there was a sign that said, "Lost is a 4-letter word." And I think they were referring to the fact that you didn't want to leave articles behind. That was a bad thing. I've done that too. But many people in our world today feel lost. You know, they feel alone, they feel hopeless, they are sometimes lost in a sea of unanswered questions. A lot of times our teens are in that place of existential suffering, separateness. They don't even know how to describe it, and they're in such pain. You see a lot of unfortunate suicides of youth and teens today because they don't know how to escape the pain and be taken through that. And so we all experience degrees of all 3 areas, really, at various times through our life. The core suffering of man is basically separation, you know, separation. So it's a dynamic spiritually. And basically separation we convert into physical and psychological suffering. And the whole thing that we want to do is go from there into merging with the divine, okay? Liberation and freedom, where we enter states of oneness, and out of that we begin to find a freedom, a sense of joy, a sense of peace, a sense of love. All of those things are born and birthed out of the energies of oneness. Oneness with your source, because that's the nature of the divine. And how do we get there? Well, it's about becoming aware of many times the conditioning that has gone on in our mind. We live in this world, and there are a lot of things that go on in the mind in terms of the mind wanting, the mind judging, the mind needing. And if we don't get those things, then we're into elements of suffering in varying degrees. And so, you know, it was interesting some of the areas that they talked about, because you had to then ask yourself, is this an area for me? And you would invite the divine to help you. And there would be pictures and images coming up in these different areas of needs that the mind has. One of the needs is for certainty. And so the mind sometimes demands a sense of certainty so as to survive and to have stability. You know, can you or this or that give me certainty? You know, okay, you're offering me this or you're suggesting that. I want certainty, you know. Will it for sure, with certainty, bring happiness, bring success, bring prosperity, whatever, you know? Can you tell me, can I know with certainty that this man I'm going to marry is going to keep me happy all my life? Can I know with certainty that this job that I'm going into is going to keep me fulfilled? Can I know with certainty that this house I'm going to buy isn't going to fall down? You know, we want certainty, and when we can't get certainty, the mind, you know, goes through its struggles. Another is we want variety. The mind wants variety. And if we don't have variety, we get bored. And so, you if we have the same food that we eat every day, at every meal, we would struggle with that. We would, be in suffering. And so if it doesn't have variety, we want a different car, we want a different house, we want a different place, we want new clothes, we want all these different things. Not to eat at the same restaurant. Some of us do. You got to look at that too. Then there is another that is basically that the mind craves for significance. And so, you ask yourself, okay, what are the ways in which in my life I'm in struggle or suffering because of the strong need to crave for significance? We want to get credit for things. We want to achieve and succeed and accomplish and stand out in some way, and maybe even driven to do so because our mind needs significance. It's kind of establishing this need. And we are just asked to notice that and basically invite, and when you do, prayerfully open to that, you get images and happenings in your life where you showed up in a particular way that was the product of your inner need, egotistical or whatever you want to call it. And you don't label it bad, you just notice. You just notice, and you see how that made you suffer. You see how it took you away from and separate from the part of you that wanted to be in peace and in love and in joy. Your need for significance. And so we want credit, the importance, and we don't even want to share it sometimes. And when others are getting the significance, we're in suffering. There's another, which is the need for love, and everyone can relate to that. We want love, and if oftentimes we put it outside ourselves. And so no amount of love given to us from external is enough. There's never enough. And so therefore, if somebody else is getting love, or even what seems to be praise at our workplace or whatever, we begin to struggle and suffer because it's not coming our way. We're greedy. We want it all. That's a need of the mind. It doesn't make you wrong. It's just those kinds of things that our mind has created that thinks it needs. And you have to catch it. You have to observe it. You have to witness it and say, this isn't really who I am, and I don't need to live from the needs of the mind any longer. We've created that part of the mind. We've created the self, basically, that is separate and apart from who you are. That mind is separate and apart. It's the smaller self. And so part of it is actually catching it and seeing that we've created it or have lived from it, and it's done nothing but create suffering for us. And the awareness of it itself actually begins to help wither it away. Okay? Another is simply the need of the mind for acknowledgement for contribution. In other words, if it's denied an acknowledgement that you've made a contribution, might be in the workplace, might be in the home or whatever, you will suffer. It's like, all the overtime I've put in without any extra pay, and the expectations. That could be your voice to your boss or whatever. There are all expectations that are hidden, that we have hidden motives. It could be a parent saying to their grown-up child, all I've done for you, all that I've given, I birthed you, I fed you, this whole thing, and you can't be there for me in this way. It's that's the acknowledgement for contribution that can go on. There are lots of ways that our mind works for this. There was a guy that I was at a gathering, actually, and it was in Denver, and hadn't met him before, and had a conversation. He was telling me about a trip that he went on to Ireland with some buddies. It was a golfing trip, and he was telling me, I don't like golf, but I wanted to go to Ireland, and these guys were going, and so I'm really lousy at golf, so I was pretty miserable. And so he told about the experience, and it was a 9-day trip, and he said we played 18 holes at least, most days 36. That took up the whole day, playing golf. And so, and he said, and the weather was miserable. It's you ever been to Ireland? It's raining, it's blowing rain, and windy conditions, and big gusts. It can be very miserable. And then he said, he talked about, I played all this golf and 36 holes a day, and I'm not good. And he said, finally, one hole, I got there in regulation. I got there in 2. A driver and an iron, and my ball is on the green. and I'm walking up to it, and a big gust of wind comes along and rolls it off the green and into a trap. And he said, and it wasn't just an ordinary trap, it was a deep trap. And he said, it wasn't just a foot or two below like normal traps. He said, you had to climb a ladder down into this trap. And you looked up in the green, it was like impossible. There's no way a pro could get out. You had to hit away from the target, you know, where it was a lower incline. And I said, you know, it sounds like you were really suffering. And he kind of went, yeah, I was, you know. So it's interesting, all the different things and ways in which in our journey and trip through life, you know, we can be in suffering and not even be aware of it. And so our response to suffering is basically that our tendency is that we want to escape it, all right? We want to run from it. And that actually only strengthens it, as opposed to turning around and facing and feeling your pain, your woundedness, your issues, the charges that you have. To actually look at them and experience and feel them dissipates them and releases. And the more that you can bring God into that dynamic, the more you're able to let go and be free and have liberation. So the ways that we often try to escape are physical things, you know, physical escape routes. You know, rather than face it and avoid it, we veg out in front of the TV. Or we just want to do something. We get busy. We start working, and we become a workaholic, or just do anything because, you know, we just don't want to feel. We don't want to face what's going on inside of us that's conflicted, or whatever. We may go shopping. We may, you know, play computer games like crazy, and or it might be eating, or excessive sleeping, or smoking, or drinking, or doing drugs. All of these things are physical escape routes that people take to get away from the pain. There's psychological escape routes, of course, and won't go into a lot, but blame is one of the biggest. So we fire back and want to blame the world, blame society, blame the people around us for whatever is not working in our life, whatever it is that we're feeling that feels off. Instead of owning it and looking at it and healing it and moving through it, we want to blame. So that way we don't face it as well. And so basically what we need to get to is the place where we have a sense of inner integrity. Inner integrity is the willingness to face the truth about ourselves. We have to face that there have been times where we are jealous, or selfish, or self-centered, or egotistical, or controlling, or manipulative, or blaming. We have times when we have this, and have to humbly admit it and acknowledge that to ourselves, that we may have hurt others as a result of these things. And you know, all of that being in the unconscious and unacknowledged is what stands between us and an experience of God. Whether we realize it or not, that is the truth. And at the point at which we bring God in to help us even face them, because see, oftentimes we have it be about the fact that our concept of God, for many a person, is that God is judgmental and God is punishing. And so there's a lot of resistance to want to bring God into all of these things. And so you have to clean up your concept of God, that God is not a punishing God, God is not a judgmental God, that God is only love and unconditional love. You embrace that, you get to that, then God becomes your friend, and that's what you're taught to be, that you can bring anything to God, okay? And you're not being condemned, no love is being withdrawn, all you're doing is being brought to awareness, and an awareness where you're able to step back. It doesn't mean that you won't ever be jealous again, or have a lustful thought, or be angry. It just means that you won't identify as much with it, and it will be over more quickly. The charges won't carry with you for years. The most you'll carry a charge of a happening where it feels like somebody hurt you or said the wrong thing, the most it will be is 30 minutes. That is moving into an awakened state. You have that sense, okay? So we're all learning to come into a greater awareness, and we are all wanting to really establish a greater bond. You know, I had to personally look at all these different areas in my life, and I saw a lot that needs to be worked on, you know. So it's not like some are, you know, way ahead. We're all at different states of unfoldment, but we all have suffering that goes on. We all have issues in which we show up in ways that we may not be proud of. But again, if you have a willingness to look at that and to move beyond it, the divine will help and assist you. And so it's coming to the place where you say, at my state of consciousness, I don't know what to do with this, but it's come into my awareness. It might have been something that happened years ago. It might have been something that happened yesterday. It might be something that's going to happen this afternoon. But it's saying, okay, God, at my state of consciousness, I am now aware of this, and you move into a state of helplessness. Helplessness meaning, I'm not going to do this on my own. I'm not going to get myself healed on my own. I can't do it, so that I get myself perfect, and then I can step into a relationship with God. I have to first be perfect. And a lot of our life is lived that we don't really experience a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of opportunities and goals and what have you, because we first want to be perfect. We want to get it all perfect first. And we do that in a lot of ways, and even in our relationship with God. And so you have to be willing to step into that relationship now. And the big way that you get close to God is with chit-chat. It's communicating with God on a regular basis, all day long. The more you talk with God and really know that the divine is there and assisting, it will help you move into new and higher states like you have never known before. Because the thing that God likes most is somebody who is wanting to be authentic and real with God. You become authentic and real with yourself, then God comes charging into your heart in a powerful and mighty way and assists you in that process. Bonding with the divine is what we're all called to do. And many of us find escape routes and get caught lost in a self that is separate, that we made, and we have to get back to the image and likeness of how God sees us and holds us. And even if we're not there yet, even if we've covered over it some, we will be loved through. And out of being loved, we will let go and become clearer and stand in it. So remember, God is that gift that we have been given to us is life. It is sacred. Become aware of the needs of the mind. Just notice them and witness them. Cut down on your escape routes. Accept yourself and all parts of yourself without judgment, without labels. Step into a state of helplessness, which is a form of surrender that opens up to the activity of God. And become intimate with God. You know, be real, authentic, and you will have ways in which you grow and expand into the grace of God like you never have known before. God bless you all.
Easter is a wondrous time of year to celebrate with family and friends. This Easter Sunday, join Unity Church and celebrate all that Easter promises. You and your family will enjoy an inspirational message from Howard Caesar. The Unity Choir will perform, and the church will have Easter surprises for kids of all ages. Don't miss Easter at Unity, 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. Easter Sunday morning. Bring the whole family and all your friends for the promise of Easter.
Thank you for joining us for today's message. We invite you to be with us again next Sunday. At Unity, we believe that God's presence of love and goodness is everywhere, and that life is meant to be good. You can find out more about Unity and our teachings at unityhouston.org.